Let's continue our reading of Alabaster, Dangermond, and the Serpent's Blade by Jason VanHorn. We're on Chapter 10, Moonshadow Syndicate. Location, undisclosed. 11 criminals entered the dark room, each from their own door. Many of them looked across the long table at one another and gave a slight nod. None smiled. Per previous instruction, the 11 stood silently behind their own leather chairs, as was the tradition established by their leader, Moonshay. As they waited, some looked down at the dark mahogany boardroom table with its crescent moon etched in the center. The crescent shape was slightly colored next to a dark part of the moon. It was the dark part, the moon shadow, which was most important for this group. They took their name, the Moonshadow Syndicate, from their leader. "Where is he?" One of the men, wearing a pinstriped suit, drummed his fingers vigorously on the top of his chair. "Shut up, Darcy. You know we're supposed to remain silent," said a short man across the table. Darcy smiled. "Rubbish to that, mate. I, for one, am sick of Moonshay's little games. He used to own me, but I found where he held my daughter captive. She's safe now, and so are all the rest of my family. He's not going to blackmail me anymore." Darcy looked around the room and tapped his heart. "Mates, today, I suggest we elect a new leader." He flashed an epoxy pistol from inside his suit coat. The hard plastic gun would have been easily overlooked by Moonshay's extensive security system. Every time the 11 gathered, they passed through a metal detector and left all weapons behind before they entered the boardroom. This time, Darcy had gotten his deadly weapon through unnoticed. A woman with scarlet hair shook her head. "You're pretty stupid if you think he will be tricked, Darcy," she said. Others chuckled. A large man wearing a dark blazer spoke up. "I will support new leadership." Some looked surprised, but nodded at Kwame, the man from South Africa. As the group continued the debate, Moonshay laughed as he watched them from his flat panel screen in the adjacent room. "When will they learn?" he said to the thief. "They have no respect for tradition. Don't they understand what I'm trying to do?" The thief, masked in black from head to toe, remained silent. The boss flipped off the screen and stood up. He looked down and straightened his white suit and adjusted his tie. Putting his fingers together, he cracked his knuckles. "Time for a lesson." He picked up his cane and looked at it. The cane was old and ornate, and he took care as he unscrewed the pommel and pressed a button on the stick. "Open the door," he commanded to the thief. The door opened, and Dr. Zarek Moonshay stepped into the dark boardroom, followed by the thief, who took a position near the wall behind him. The 11 quickly ceased their debate, and the room fell completely silent. Moonshay approached the table and sat down. The others followed his lead. "Friends, before I give the floor to each of you for your reports, I would like to tell you I have finally made a breakthrough. My thief has acquired one of the stones I've been seeking, thanks to Kwame's willingness to provide the architectural plans for the Union buildings in Pretoria." Zarek then looked over at a man named Hito. The Japanese crime lord, Tosaka Hito, sat up a little taller in his perfectly tailored suit. "Yes, it appears I've discovered another one in Tokyo, Japan, linked to a most interesting—" "That's enough, Moonshay," Darcy yelled as he stood, pulling out the gun and pointing it at Moonshay. "I'm tired of your stupid, crazy obsession with these stones. It's time for new leadership." Darcy squeezed the trigger. The bullet exploded out of the gun. Everyone in the room rose, shouting. Zarek Moonshay didn't flinch. As he sat in his seat staring at Darcy, he raised his hand and slowly lowered it, ushering everyone to stay calm and sit back down. And then he smiled at the assailant, who remained standing. The bullet was suspended just in front of Moonshae's heart. He reached up and plucked it from the air. "Ouch! It's hot," he said as he tossed it to the side. "Darcy, when will you ever learn?" The man with the gun stood with his mouth gaping wide open. How did you do that?" he muttered. The boss spoke softly as he rubbed his burned hand. "Simple, really. Knowledge, Darcy, knowledge. If you don't control knowledge, you have nothing. Now you must serve as an example." Moonshae pushed a button on his cane, and a blue force field surrounded Darcy. The man dropped his gun, and everyone saw him start pounding on the walls of the force field, but no one could hear him. Then it moved and lifted him and his gun toward a door at the end of the room. "Dr. Moonshae, please," Kwame pleaded as he stood up, but the well-dressed man in white only looked forward at Darcy. Zarek Moonshae raised his finger at Kwame and then lowered it as Kwame sat back down in his seat. The lights in the room lowered and the crescent moon on the table glowed. Darcy stood helpless next to the door, pushed there by the force field as the wood panels on either side of the door lowered. The inky blackness of space lay just beyond the windows. Moonshae stood up. "Now, friends, please observe," he said as he pressed the left side of the mahogany table in front of him. Darcy pounded on the force field, screaming silently to everyone in the room. Dr. Zarek Moonshae cleared his throat. "You are all criminals, and I own each one of you," he said. "Your secrets are mine, and so is your knowledge. If you cross me, there is not a hope for you or your family." He pressed the right side of the table. Holographic pictures began to float, spinning above the table like baseball cards. They featured Darcy's entire family, all the way down his family line to his second cousins. I do detest violence," Zarek said, "but when it comes to matters of the mind, all of you can expect equal treatment." At the same time, across every one of Darcy's holographic family cards, a red slash appeared. Moonshae looked at Darcy, who had stopped pounding on the force field and now was crying. The door opened and sucked the man directly out into the dead cold of outer space, away from the craft. Dr. Zarek Moonshae felt no remorse for Darcy, only marvel at his orbital supersonic jet that could convert to a rocket to achieve space flight. The door to the outer hall closed, and the blue force field disappeared. Moonshae sat down. "Now that I have your attention, let me remind you never to call me crazy." Next time, we'll pick up with Chapter 11, Alpha 287. Thanks.